Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And I've got a special guest from Gametime, Sean Patrick Bowley, making his first appearance. Sean, great to be able to have you on the podcast.
How you doing, Chris? Thanks for having me. The talent show. I don't know what you booked me on here for, so I'm clearly not as talented as some of the kids you got coming on here often, but thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Hey, you've been doing this for 20 years, like you and I were going back and forth. It's like it was yesterday, and it's just you're having a lot of fun. You do a lot of great work. And I know people in Connecticut appreciate it, and I appreciate it as well, especially through my times with ATR and TV going about the broadcast. So thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, hey, it's a labor of love, and if everybody enjoys, I just growing up, I love the idea of like someone chronicling your season, and what better way to do that than get into the journalism business and doing that, and then it's fun for me, and it's great for everybody else, and I've crafted a lot of great memories over the years with a lot of great kids, and we're now adults, all of them. See them getting all married, having kids, so I've been around. I've been around, but it's been fun.
The articles you've written, obviously you have your own podcast during football. I know it's a big time hit and a lot of people listen, but let's get right down to the nitty gritty. Obviously the CIAC coming out with now having 6 state championship winners instead of 4. I know they had this back in 2002 to 2009. And I know you mentioned that in your article, I think written last week. Before we get into obviously your thoughts on that, I want to ask about the article because I thought it was pretty well, going about the grades of teams, where they were last year, how they would have potentially been if they were in the same class this year. How much fun was it doing that?
Don't ask my editor that question, because I was just miserable when I was doing it. So shout out to my editor for keeping on me. But how much fun it was. I mean, it's once I get an inspiration to have an idea, then it becomes fun, but getting there is a little bit of work. Mm-hmm. And plus it's a topic I really wish I didn't have to write about, but it was good because I thought it really illustrated what we're in for and why, in my opinion, this was kind of an editorial, as you could tell by the graphic with the thin slice of bread, that what we're in for and why it's not as great a deal as a lot of coaches want you to think it is.
Now, why do you, because now this is where your opinion comes in, because I've heard everybody's opinions. Obviously, I have coaches on here. I get players as well. They tell me their side. I want to get yours. This is a non-judgmental podcast.
That's fine.
I listen to everybody. Trust me. My opinion doesn't
That's great.
matter. Thank you. I appreciate that. My now fiance appreciates that as well. Sean, why do you believe that the 6 state championship winners is basically not a good idea?
Well, number one, I don't think there are 6 state championship football teams in the state. Now, I know that's a tough thing for people to swallow, and I know we did it before. But just to give you a little bit of history on where Connecticut's just a unique state, and to kind of give you a history, we didn't have a playoff until 1976. Then it was just 4 classes, and you had the top 2 teams with the point system, which hasn't changed until recently, making the playoffs. And it was kind of like a novelty thing. It was like, oh, we get because it used to be like there used to be a number 1 vote at the end of the year, and nobody knew. Nobody could. Xavier didn't play, Ansonia and New Canaan didn't play. So on and so forth. And so there was a lot of people wishing they could see some of these teams that were in their own leagues play beyond that in a playoff. So then they added 4, 2 each. That went around. That one. It was that format for almost 20 years. They did when they realized they wanted to get a little bit more teams in the playoffs. Then they added 6 divisions, and then you had top 2. Then in 94, I believe ish. Then they added well, let's squeeze some semifinals in here, because remember now, the winter season begins right at the beginning of December. I mean, basically boys basketball is 2 weeks in, and girls basketball is like that week. Thanksgiving is the last week of November, the last Thursday in November, and it doesn't give you a lot of time to wrap your season up. The state championship used to be the week right after. So they're like, let's squeeze some semifinals in here. And they did that, and they added the Tuesday games, which they still have now. Mm-hmm. And the Tuesday games, that gives you a very, very short window. they figured, well, it's only just a couple teams, not a big deal. We can squeeze an extra game in there and then kind of smooth it out a bit so it looks pretty decent. You have enough rest, because that became an issue down the road. So then they said, let's draw it back. We go 4 divisions with 4 teams each. Then they added in 2002, right about the time I started. I love the 4 of 4 each. And then right as they did, right as I got started, 2002, they had 6 divisions of 4 teams each. Now, they had that for about 8 years or so. I think that in 2009, they finally discontinued that, and they had the one we just wrapped up with, which is basically they added a quarterfinal round. So it became apparent to me as I'm getting into this and I'm watching this, there were so many times during those 6 championship years, that there were some teams, number one, that were left out. There were teams like Jonathan Law in 2007 left out at 9-1. Avon left out 9-1 or 8-2. There are a lot of good teams that got left out, and that wasn't fair. 8-2, 9-1. What else you got to do to get into the playoffs? And I sympathize. I said, that's not right. We need to add one more round here so we can give these teams that had exceptional seasons a chance to play for it. Now, they actually listened. I advocated for like 2 years, and we had a couple ideas. Steve Philippon had an idea about starting the playoffs before Thanksgiving. I like the idea of starting it after Thanksgiving, doing that squeeze-in date, the Tuesday, Saturday, or Sunday, and then you play its championship a week after that. And to be honest, it's other than I think 1 year, which was 2013, I think we've managed to do okay with the weather. I mean, the weather actually has been it hasn't been as bad as it used to be that time of year. So, and I thought it was great. And you could see by the time we got to the quarterfinals that the matchups, give or take 1 or 2 that were kind of screwy, the matchups, it wasn't very good, meaning that the top 4 teams just crushed the other 4 teams. So at least you gave those teams a little bit of a shot. They get in there, but it became very apparent that the talent level in football is not good enough to go beyond that. But here we are. They want more, and they don't want to move Thanksgiving. So either you add another round by getting rid of Thanksgiving, and we end the season the week before. Mm-hmm. That's the week we play the game, the Thanksgiving week, and then we go on from there. Or you do it like they did here. So this is the compromise. Why do I think it's not as good? Because number one, you're diluting the champions. We're going to have 2 teams sitting there wishing they played. Now, one of the big things about this is the alliance is great. The alliance, which does a lot of like matching these teams up, Al Carbone and his crew, the alliance has alleviated that somewhat. But you're still going to have 2 teams sitting there in the end of the year. Mm-hmm. They won the state championship, but that team over there is kind of in their same class. I'll give you a great example. Like Ridgefield and Shelton. Let's say Ridgefield wins in double L and Shelton in L. And they didn't play. They're going to play in the regular season here, but forget that for a minute. Mm-hmm. So then they didn't play in the regular season. You wish those 2 teams played or down even below. Ansonia and Sheehan. Ansonia is separated from Sheehan. Those 2 have gone head to head the last few years. Some great games. Or Bloomfield and Valley Regional, or someone from the double S division. Mm-hmm. So what I think it does too much is just for the sake of getting a few teams in who probably don't belong. Let's be honest, because we're looking at teams now. You're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. And if I looked at it correctly, you're probably going to have a 5-5 in there, depending on the playoff class, because these divisions, they're not evenly talent. The talent is not evenly spread out. You just 6 at each side. So without going completely long-winded here, I think it just dilutes the state championships just for the sake of assuaging some egos, some guys who want to tell their kids we still have something to play for. Where my argument is you always have something to play for. We got to keep the regular season sacrosanct. And, I could go on and give you other examples, but that's basically it, Chris. I know this has been a passionate thing. I know I'm crying and whining about it. I try to keep it tempered a little bit on Twitter, but I just don't see it. I just, other than maybe a coach who's like on the cusp, it helps him out and it helps his kids' morale out. But, Then they're going to want to add more, and then they're going to want to add more until we're sitting here in October, starting playoff games like Westchester County. Westchester County plays 6 regular season games, and they go, all right, we're all in the playoffs, and then they play, or at least they did. So I just think it's just ruined. It's a special playoff system here in Connecticut. You got to be great, and if you get a little lucky, you get a little lucky, but you got to be great. And that's basically where I mean, I don't want to see it ruined, and unfortunately, I see it could get ruined because Class L, you look at it compared to Class Double-L,
stacked.
Yeah, Class L. If it was last year, granted, we haven't really played this year yet, but Class Double-L will play Class L. It's just like there'll be a Class L team that got knocked out by like New Canaan or Darien, and meanwhile, teams that they beat 100 times over in Double-L are going to go to win a state championship. You could argue. I could argue all day about it, and I've gone on long enough. So that's basically it. I just hope it. I hope we figured out something out.
Sean, I think, Connecticut, and I can't speak for other states, but I know Connecticut has a lot of, you look at, okay, what are possible, to kind of affect, I guess, this playoff. I mean, you have co-ops, you have technical schools. I don't know about other states if they have that or not. You also have, you mentioned the alliance, which I think is fantastic. There's 2 conferences that don't join that alliance as of right now, the NVL and the Pequot. I've been pushing hard for the NVL to get into it. I think the last time there was an alliance game, if you take away, obviously, when Derby played Shelton, Gilbert played Career, it was Ansonia against, I think, Newtown, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Newtown beat Ansonia. Ansonia hasn't played another team outside of the NVL except for in the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues I think that can be somehow fixed, but that's out of my pay grade. I'm going to ask you, because I know you're paid well and you do a great job. How can we fix this? Is there a way to be able to, if it is fixable, do you have a solution for that? For this?
Yeah. Well, part of my solution, I've been an advocate of the, organizing the state by whatever playoff divisions we want to call it. We want to go by class, we'll go by class. We want to do power rating, we'll go power rating like hockey. You want to separate preps schools or whatever, Catholic schools, put them into their own division. Fine, you can do that. Or you want to take the tech schools and the co-op schools, which are different. Let's be honest, those are very different dynamics. It takes a little longer for those type of schools or programs to get going because you're taking kids from all sorts of towns and maybe no youth program. So that's a little bit of a different thing. So maybe you put them into their own division. I like the idea of playing. Here's what I really want to do. I want to get, because right now there's nothing to win in the regular season. That's why the regular season doesn't matter anymore. The Alliance has tried to facilitate that and tried to fix it up, but they're all over the place. They're matching all these games up, and you look at one team's schedule and then the next door team schedule. They're 2 different things. It's not as bad as it was this year, but still they're mixing and matching. There's no rhyme or reason to it. They're just trying to find the best matchups with school size and all that stuff and power. And I think that you should just play within a division. You play 8 games or 7 games or whatever it is. And if you win that division or you win and then you're runner up, then you get to go to the state playoffs. Then you can hang a banner. You can say we're the Housatonic Class Double-L Housatonic Division champions. Let's say you have 4 divisions or whatever it is in Class Double-L, and then you go on to go to the playoffs. I like the idea of kids playing in, not relying on a formula like this is the BCS or NCAA. Like, I don't like that. I want teams to know exactly what they need to get in, which is win games. Like, they need to win games now, but now this team across the state that you never heard of might have a better schedule than you. Oh, they might have played NFA and beat them when NFA's down, and so they might get in over you. But you were 8-2 or 7-3, more often 7-3. I don't like that. I like you controlling your own destiny. You should be allowed to control your own destiny. You win your division, you win your area, you go to the state playoffs. I've done several mock-up models of this. A guy named Matt Glass from North Haven had done this, kind of piggybacking off and doing his own a few years ago. I don't think we really described it very well, I guess, or at least showed it in work in person. But again, I would really like to look at that. I think that would be a great way to do things. And then you could stick with just quarterfinals, and maybe even I don't even have a problem adding another division or two, as long as those divisions make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, again, let's say double L, L, and M and S, right? And then you have the Catholic division, and then you have, and then you have the co-op and tech school division. I don't have a problem with that. But the blowback I get on that is, well, what if I want to play those teams and blah, blah, blah? I go, well, there's a way to do that by building 2 bye dates at the beginning of the season. You can play whoever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You as a coach now control that. That's another big problem these coaches have. They can't control their schedule. I say we give them a strict division schedule that will get them into the playoffs. And those things could be they can be, static over 5-10 years. You can change them up if you want, if teams aren't doing poorly, or if their enrollments drop or whatever. But I suggest we give teams 2 dates at the beginning of the season as kind of I don't want to call them throwaway games, but they're kind of glorified exhibition games. But you play them, maybe you play a rival that's in a different division than you. Let's say you're Ansonia. We want to play Shelton, right, to start the season. I think that's a great idea, but it won't really matter for Ansonia's playoff points. And that they'll be allowed to do it. You can treat it, people might say well, it's kind of an exhibition. Well, a lot of other states do it. Texas does it, you name it. A lot of states have these non-district or non-division games that they play to start the season. Then you get into districts. Then you get into your schedule. Your games matter. And then whoever wins your division, they go to the playoffs. Or in Connecticut, I think we would have to do, first place and runner up, and they would go to their division. I think a more structured approach rather than this haphazard, everybody's got a different schedule. The leagues mean nothing anymore. They're all between teams of non-equal size. Sheen sitting in there playing double L schools when they're playing for a class double S championship, and that has impact on whether they go to the playoffs or not. And I think as enough of that, it's an antiquated and outdated and obsolete system that we used to do. We need to get out of this point system. We need to put it back in the team's hands.
Well, I think that division comment I think is pretty interesting, because obviously I think of baseball, I think of the NFL and how divisions, depending on where you are, if you win your division, you're in the playoffs, and then you have the wild card and so on and so forth. I do like that. Now, the only thing I do, and I'm not questioning you, I just question the overall of how we would go about it, is who do we put in that division? Because there could be a point where you could have 3 class S teams, and then you could have a double L, depending on how you're doing it. I feel like there's no perfect way to do it, especially too, because this is high school sports. You've got kids who leave, you got kids who graduate.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got Platt. I was talking to Coach Bruin a couple weeks ago, how in the beginning of the year they could have, let's say, 400, 500 boys, and then by the end of the year they could have 450 because 50 drop out. I'm just being facetious, but I think there is a way to, I like that division idea. I think that's something that we could potentially build on.
Right. I mean, nothing's going to be perfect, right?
Correct.
What I'm saying is that I think we just need to figure out something better. And I'm open to better ideas, but there are other states kind of do it this way, and there's a reason why they do it this way. We're in a unique position where we basically have a hard, we play. We're the only state still playing the regular season by Thanksgiving or by even mid-November. We're the only state that does that. Most states have already started their playoffs, and and that would be the answer to everything. To be completely honest with you, you have to really not care about Thanksgiving. And there's a growing contingent of coaches and admins who don't want to work that day. Number one, but they are saying what, our rivalry is not great. Shelton Derby, for example, is gone. And Sonia Naugatuck hasn't been great over the years, although Naughty won. People will come to see Darien, New Canaan, no matter when they play. They could be playing in February. They'll come see that game. So, what is that as big a deal as it used to be? Probably not. the Green Bowl, that it means a lot to. It's a tradition, sure. And there's been some great. I love the idea of ending the season with a finale and everything. But that's an easy way to fix everything. To say like, okay, well, we're gonna do this division thing or whatever. We'll put division, but we're gonna start the playoffs. We'll go back to 4, but we're gonna add another round. We'll have a 16-team tournament rather than 8, and then you start in like the second week in November, or the first week even. And then maybe you start the season a little earlier and play 8 games. That way you're not playing too many. But I mean, I'm open to different ideas, but I don't, again, right now, the question is right now, why isn't this good? This isn't good because nobody's coming up with an answer. We're just kicking the can down the road. I don't see it. I don't see us adding in more teams. I don't see us adding 8 again. That was a fluke that one year, but I don't see it. There's nowhere else to go here. 6 divisions is just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It's either do what I say and we can go with 4, and we can just fix the kids' schedules, because that's a big deal. Fixing the schedules and making them a little bit more equal and have a little bit of rhyme or reason to it. I play these teams because they have within 200 boys enrollment of my program. I can live with that. They're at M school. I'll play M teams to get into the M playoffs. Makes sense, right? You can either do that starting Thanksgiving like there is now, or which I think will happen is they're eventually just going to be like, well, guys, we had a good run, but all things must pass, and we're going to remove Thanksgiving. We're going to go back to 4 divisions. I can see this happening in like 3 or 4 years. We're going to go back to 4 divisions, and we're going to play Thanksgiving, the week before. And then we're just going to, and then maybe we'll add 16 once we settle into this. That's the way I think it's going to happen. But the number one thing, though, Chris, that I want to get rid of, I cannot stand the playoffs system, the playoff point system. Can't stand it. It's ridiculous now. It makes no sense. Back when there was like 16 leagues and you didn't know, and they all played 8 games, it made sense. We had to figure it out somehow, right? Now it's like we have the ability to do something legitimate here, and we need to get rid of that, because sometimes it makes no sense. Shelton not getting in over NFA. They beat NFA 2 years ago, whatever, in 2019. That made no sense.
Mm-hmm.
It still makes not a lot of sense. So they tried to fiddle with it, but they're going to make it worse and worse and worse. Forget it. Get rid of it. Let's just either we're going to get rid of Thanksgiving or we're not. Either way, I would rather fix these regular season schedules so they're a little bit more equitable.
I do wonder, and I know we're just about running out of time, but I do want to make the comment about Thanksgiving. I do wonder, because as we continue to grow as society, and I feel like the coaches, the players and such, as we move forward, I do wonder if Thanksgiving, because I've seen this in the past, obviously, canceling the COVID year because there was no football, that there is a growing number of people that I've seen that I don't want to say don't care about the Thanksgiving Day games, but I feel like you said, other than the big time rivalries, it seems like it's becoming less and less of an importance. And maybe I could be wrong. I know parents, I know players will come out, and that's fine. But I feel like if you get enough people to say, let's, like what you said, playing to be, the week before Thanksgiving, and then maybe figure out something with the playoffs, because I don't see the season starting during the end of August. I feel like that's not going to happen. Yeah. It's a possibility. I know a lot of loopholes, a lot of things have to happen, but unless it's either they start early or you get rid of Thanksgiving. And I don't see either happening as of right now, especially for the divisions comment that you made as well.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving thing is, I always made it a big deal. I always said, look, you could be Quinnebog versus Thames River, and your game matters. Not just to you, it's your season finale, but it matters somewhere else to a lot of other teams. So people cared about that game. Like, those kids were like playing in a Super Bowl. Remember that? But the problem here is, though, a lot of schools are moving that game up, right? They're moving it to Wednesday. A lot of teams, there was a week where we were worried about whether it was too cold to play on Thanksgiving, which was ridiculous, but everybody played the night before on Wednesday night because they could. So a lot more schools, I have to, I see the trend. A lot more schools are like, look, we don't want to pay the overtime, or the AD doesn't want to work. I know a few ADs are like, I don't want to work that day. It's Wednesday night and that's it. Shelton is playing Xavier this year, Thanksgiving week. Their game's on Monday. So that gives them a full week to rest up for the playoffs. So it's increasingly that the playoffs matter more than anything else. I just hope, Chris, that we keep our eye on the ball and not make the playoffs be like everybody's got to be in the playoffs. That's a big problem for me. Like everyone just wants to say they were in the playoffs and put it on their Instagram or Snapchat and say, look, we made the play, we made state, we're great. And when your team went 6-4, you got obliterated 55-0 in the first round by the top seed or whatever it was. I don't want to see us to do that. So I really want to put a lot. I want to keep the regular season 10 games. It's very important. I want to keep those week to week exciting, because right now you're gonna have teams that are gonna be qualifying in mid-October because it's a 16, it's 4 of 6, or sorry, it's 8 of 6. So now you have 40, whatever it is, team. It's just I just want the regular season to be the same way. Otherwise, what's the point? But I do think down the road they are eventually going to get rid of Thanksgiving. I wish they wouldn't, but I can see the writing on the wall in that regard. It's a great holiday. I mean, like Tom Brockett says, what's better than getting up every morning and playing football and then go and have dinner with your family? I agree with him. But I can see it's a lot less of a deal it was back when football started in 100 years ago here. So and I could see them going one extra week. I could see them starting like in early September, first week of September. I could see that. I don't think that would really factor that much. But there's a lot of changes that should be made and need to be made, and sometimes all things must pass, right? So,
Sean, it was great to be able to have you on the podcast. Being able to kind of shoot the what with you. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully, you'll be willing to come back on. I know you're going to be busy, during the football season. I'm sure I'll see you around, maybe during some NVL games potentially.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll want to come back on sometime in the future.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I mean, I know I got my own. I know, everyone's like, "Whoa, well, what are you doing on somebody else's?" But look, we're all trying to have fun here. We're all doing this for the kids, really. And I know that's what a lot of coaches will like, this idea for 6. And I can't fault them for that, even though I think it's a little bit misguided. I can't fault them wanting the best for their kids. I think there's a better way we can do this. But as far as like me being on, I appreciate it. I mean, you're very passionate and you've done a really good job here. And I know a lot of coaches listen to you. So that's a good stepping stone, but nice job. And I appreciate you giving me I'm sorry, a little, long-winded here.
Trust me. I like I told you, A, I don't judge. 2, I listen to everybody. And 3, I like listening information. You know me, I broadcast. I need all that information. And trust me, what you gave was
yeah.
good.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll be talking about this. I talked about it ad nauseum on my own podcast and on Twitter. I'm trying not to be a salty curmudgeon, but it's hard. But so I'll talk about it with George DeMayo in a few weeks. And so it'll, we'll get into it when the season starts. But we're going to try and focus on the teams and the kids for the time being and not get too wrapped up in that until the inevitable happens. And then they come out with the pairings and I'm sitting there just banging my head. Why can't Greenwich play Darien? Darn it. Anyway.
That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm our journey. Find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.